Alright, now this archetype, I am a bit confused to how they handled its localization. This is the Rokket archetype used by the main rival of Yu-Gi-Oh! Vrains, that being Revolver, or Ryoken Kogami if you want his real name. And yeah, the archetype in the OCG is called Verret or Valet, or however you want to pronounce it. Basically, it's an archetype consisting of bullet dragons, which are loaded into huge gun dragons, which are their extra deck monsters, which use them to fire in all sorts of directions and have very varying effects in order to disable the opponent and cripple him from playing the game. But rarely any of them, if not any at all, look like actual rockets. So yeah, all of them are basically various sorts of bullets, and they have bullet motifs. So why couldn't have an archetype been called Bullet? It would make much sense, since well, we'll see one of their monsters actually has a very nice trivia trivia fact that makes it pretty confusing when since since the archetype's name is not Bullet. So yeah, but anyway, naming and the shenanigans aside, it does not change how the archetype is played. So let's get on to their first monster, that being Anis Rokket Dragon. This is a level 1 with 0 attack and 2200 defense, and when a link monster's effect is activated that targets this face-up card on the field, quick effect, you can destroy this card, then make one face-up monster on the field unable to attack. Also, it has its effects negated. During the end phase, if this card is in the graveyard because it was destroyed on the field by battle or card effect and sent there this turn, you can special summon one Rokket monster from your deck except Anis Rokket Dragon. You can only use each effect of Anis Rokket Dragon once per turn. So yeah, this is basically where we immediately see the playstyle of the archetype, and that is supplying the field, first up making a link monster, and then supplying the field with a bunch of, or basically a few of these main deck monsters, which you can then target with the link monster's effects, and as soon as there are, the main deck monster is destroyed and you get the disabling effect, and during the end phase you can get another Rokket Dragon from your deck in order to replace the fallen one. So yeah. As for this one, well, it's actually, first off, it's a level 1 with gargantuan defense points for a level 1. The only other level 1s with that many defense points I've seen are Mech Lords, so yeah. And actually the disabling effect on this one is actually permanent, so yeah, you basically can negate its effects and the monster cannot attack, so you basically shut him down for good. And that's a very nice effect to have, and this is actually a very nice 3-off staple, since again it's a level 1 with a gargantuan stats. You can search him out with Verarv, though if you feel like it. You can special summon him with 1/1. So yeah, it has very practical uses, and yeah, it's a good card. Their next monster is the level 1 Rokket Synchron. This is a level 1 tuner, of course, since it's a Synchron it has to be a tuner. And when this card is normal summoned, you can target one level 5 or higher Dark Dragon monster in your graveyard and special summon it in defense position. Negate its effect and destroy it during the end phase. Also, you cannot special summon monsters for from the extra deck for the rest of this turn except dark monsters. Okay, this is basically, since it's a tuner focused on synchro spamming in an archetype that didn't have any synchro monsters up until this guy came out, it's alright. It ditches any basically cohesion that the archetype had, and it basically you can use it and the monster you revived in order to further link plays. But as we'll see on, their synchro monster is actually one of the best monsters in the entire game. So yeah, you basically want to run this guy at 3, or maybe 2 if you think 3 is a bit too cloggy, because of said dragon. So yeah, and their final level 1 is Chobam Armor Dragon. Okay, and when an opponent's monster declares a direct attack, you can special summon this card from your hand in attack position, and if you do this, this card cannot be destroyed by battle this turn. Also, any damage you take from attacks involving this card is halved, If this card is sent to the graveyard as a link material, you can target one other dark monster in your graveyard, add it to your hand. Also, your opponent can add one monster from their graveyard to their hand. You can only use this effect of Chobam Armor Dragon once per turn. Okay, it's a decent protection from battle, and it also halves battle damage. And recycling is neat, but I do not understand why the hell would you want to give your opponent the basically the opponent can actually add any monster from their graveyard into the hand. So yeah, it's a bit of a gimmicky choice here. However, it is very welcoming to see that this thing also has very little restrictions over what it lets you add into your hand. Basically, it allows you to add any dark monster into the hand by this effect, which can open up some nice splashability. But again, you usually don't run this because it's a card that's basically forced into its own archetype, and yeah, it isn't searchable by the archetype, and the only synergy it has with the archetype is that it's a dark dragon. So yeah. Next up, we have their first level 2 Shell Rokket Dragon. This one is a level 2 with 1100 attack and 2000 defense. And when a Link monster's effect is activated that targets this face-up card on the field, quick effect, you can destroy this card. Then destroy one monster in the column this card was in, and if you do, and destroy any monster in this card's adjacent zones. During the end phase, if this card is in the graveyard because it was destroyed there and sent on the field from the field and set there this turn by battle or card effect, you can special summon one Rokket monster except Shell Rokket Dragon, and you can only use each effect of Shell Rokket Dragon once per turn. Oh boy, this effect really reeks of Cyber Dark Impact, and I'm not even being subtle here. Column and adjacent zones? Really, Konami? What the hell? Like, I thought we grew up from that. Like, the best part about this thing is that it's a level 2 with 2000 defense, but again, Lilybell is also a thing, so that's a miles better card than this. But yeah, from now on I'm actually gonna stop elaborating that how this effect activates, and that during the end phase you can special summon another Rokket, so I'll just be elaborating the shortened version of said effect. But as for this effect is, yeah, basically it also destroys your own monsters as well. However, it does not trigger their effects. Some of their cards actually do have that thing where you can they can also pop your own monsters, but since the Link monsters effect didn't target them, they cannot activate their effects. So yeah, you can basically lose 2 monsters for this effect and get a very unreliable destruction effect, because it only destroys stuff that is in the same column as this card, which can only be 1 monster or 1 spell or a trap. So yeah, and if it's not the one you want to get rid of, well, tough shit apparently. So yeah, you basically run one of these due to it being a somewhat decent level 2 2k wall. So yeah, if you run it at all, since again. Next up we have Auto Rokket Dragon. A bit of pronunciation issue there, sorry. And its effect when a Link monster targets is that you can send 1 spell trap on the field to the graveyard, and yeah, it's a nice effect since it does not destroy, so you can basically dodge some floating effects there. Also during the end phase you can special summon a Rokket except itself, and only once per turn for this effect. So yeah, yeah, this is their first level 3 as well, so it's okay. It's a very nice form of back row removal, but it's also not limited to face up or face down shenanigans. So any piece of back row, you just send it to the graveyard, avoid the potential floating it might have. So yeah, good stuff here. Next up we have Magna Rokket Dragon, and this one has the same effect as Auto Rokket Dragon, except it all works on monsters, and you get the rocket at the end phase. Arguably even better, since monsters usually have various floating effects nowadays, and some of them are even immune to targeting. So yeah, it's a yeah. This thing even doesn't even target with its removal, so that's another huge plus in my opinion. Also, it's a level 4 with 1800 attack, which is a very nice value for a level 4, and for Xyz plays as well, as we'll see. We'll see on later. They have a rank 4 Xyz monster, which is we'll see. But yeah, it's a good card. Now, next up we have Metal Rokket Dragon. Okay, what do you do when you are targeted by a Link Monster's effect? Well, you basically can destroy all your opponent's cards in the column this card was in, and during the end phase you get another Rokket. Okay, so this one is actually an upgraded version of Shell Rokket, even though that's not saying much. Well, again, the straight up upgrade, which I very much appreciate, is that it does not destroy the monsters that this card was adjacent to, so those are safe, so that's a plus. Another plus is that it destroys every card in that column, meaning you can also pop the opponent's Link monsters and the monsters in the main monster zone and spells or traps. So yeah, this can actually be a very formidable form of removals, but again, it's a very situational due to it being column based. Again, Cyber Dark Impact, why? But yeah, you basically run one or two of these due to the fact that you can actually pull off some a nice extra link disruption with this thing's effect. So yeah. Next up we have Rokket Tracer. Okay, this one isn't a traditional Rokket monster, so I'll be reading the full effect once again. It has a quick effect that you can target one face-up card you control, destroy it, and if you do, special summon one Rokket monster in your deck except Rokket Tracer. Also, you cannot special summon monsters from the extra deck for the rest of this turn except dark monsters. You can only use this effect of Rokket Tracer once per turn. This falls under the same problem I have with Shell Rokket Dragon, and that is, yeah, you can destroy your own rockets and stuff, but it does not trigger their own effects, so you basically lose the the wonderful disabling effect nature of the archetype, which the archetype is based on. But still, you can get some. You use their then floating effects during the end phase to replace them with some other rockets which you might need at the moment. It's also a nice thing that this is a quick effect. You can also pop this thing itself. So yeah, there's that. But you're most likely going to be popping something which you might not need at the moment. For example, like Choba Marmor Dragon, if you choose to run him. So yeah. Also, this thing's tail really reminds me of Clearwing Synchro Dragon. There's that symbolism. Next up we have another traditional rocket, that being Silver Rokket Dragon. Yeah, this is the one which I mentioned. This is in the OCG. This is called the Silver Bullet or Silver Verret Dragon, which is basically translates into Silver Bullet Dragon. Lovely name. Why the hell would you call it Silver Rokket with 2 Ks? Yeah. I didn't even bring attention to that. But anyway, when this thing is targeted by a Link monster's effect, you can destroy it and look at the opponent's extra deck and banish one card from it. Also, free Rokket during the end phase. Okay, so this one is a bit interesting since it basically offers very sweet removal of extra deck monsters. So basically, you basically can look at your opponent's extra deck and banish any monster which might cause trouble to you, or basically get rid of an opponent's playmaker or something like that from their extra deck. And this is actually a very nice card in terms of that, and it's ran at 3 because of it. Also, it's a level 4 with 1900 attack, so nice. This one also debuted in the Revolver Structure deck, so another plus there. Next up we have their last level 4 Rokket Recharger. If a dark monster you control that was special summoned from the extra deck is destroyed by a battle or card effect, you can send this card from your hand or field to the graveyard, then target one of those destroyed monsters, special summon one dark monster from your graveyard with a different original name from the targeted monster. Also, you can only use this effect once per turn, and while you control a dark monster special summon from the extra deck, your opponent's monster cannot target this card for attacks. Okay, this is level 4 with 100 less defense than NS Rocket Dragon. Uh, it's a somewhat okayish effect. It offers some nice recursion for the archetype, but overall it's not a very traditional thing to consider in your rockets. Maybe a one or for potentially two off if you really feel like it, but other than that you can get some nice recycling, like I said, but overall it isn't that relevant in the long run. So yeah. Next up we have Speed Burst Dragon. This is a level 6 and with 2400 attack and 600 defense, and when you take effect damage except during the damage step, you can special summon this card from your hand, then inflict damage to your opponent equal to the damage you took, and if you do, gain life points equal to half the damage you inflicted. When this card is tribute summoned, you can add 2 Rokket monsters with different names from your deck to your hand, and you can only use this effect of Speed Burst Dragon once per turn. Okay, this is a very confusing bunch of effects. The first effect is rarely ever going to be used unless you're playing against Trickstars or something, and the point in the aftermath of the effect when you special summon this is very pointless. And the only relevant part of this thing is when this thing is tribute summoned, you get to perform 2 searches, which is irrelevant since you won't be tribute summoning this most likely, and to top it all off, you probably will be wanting those 2 rockets to remain in the deck so you can search them out later during the end phase when you pop some other rockets on the field. So yeah, questionable one-off in my opinion. Next up we have Exploder Rocket Dragon. This is a level 7 with 2000 attack and defense, and when a link monster's effect, yeah, this is a traditional rocket monster. When it's affected by a link monster, each player takes 2000 damage. Also, you get a free rocket monster during the end phase. Okay, so this one is a bit weird in a way, but basically you run 2 or 3 of these because it's a level 7 rocket monster, and you need it in order to resummon it with Rocket Synchron to go into their Synchro monster. So yeah, I mean it is decent synergy with Speed Burst Dragon in said department, but it's you basically run it due to its level, and that's it. And their last monster is Absoluter Dragon, their last main deck monster, I should say. Another level 7 with 1200 attack and 2800 defense. And if you control a rocket monster, you can special summon this card from your hand. You can only special summon Absoluter Dragon once per turn this way. If this card is sent to the graveyard, you can add 1 rocket monster from your deck to your hand, and you can only use this effect of Absoluter Dragon once per turn. There we go, now this is a good level 7, and yeah, this is basically a 3-off staple, because it's an easy splashable special summonable level 7. It works well with Rocket Synchron, and when it's sent to the graveyard for either a Link or Synchro plays or whatever, you get to add a rocket to your hand. Yeah, you want some level of searching, and you want some of them to remain in the deck in order to ensure the safe usage of their effects. But yeah, this is awesome. This is a 3-off staple, and yeah, we'll get to the Synchro monster quite soon. We definitely will. Their first extra deck monster is a bit of an oddball. It's actually one of their newest pieces of support, that being Striker Dragon. This is a Link 1 Dark Dragon, requires a 1 level 4 or lower dragon monster, 1000 attack, points left. Okay. And if this card is Link summoned, you can add 1 Boot Sector Launch from your deck to your hand. You can target 1 face-up monster you control and 1 rocket monster in your graveyard. Destroy the targeted monster, if you do, add the targeted rocket from your graveyard to your hand. You can only use each effect of Striker Dragon once per turn. Okay, so this is where the archetype really starts to shine. And this is our first Gun Dragon, as you would call it. You basically target a face-up monster in order to destroy it and basically to recycle a rocket monster. It doesn't matter that this thing destroys the monster, since the monster you'll be targeting most likely will destroy itself due to its effect, and you'll get the benefits straight away. You also you'll get to recycle a Rokket monster from the hand. You wait until the end phase to get a new Rokket monster. Simple and easy. Boot Sector launches their field spell. We'll get to that later if you were confused by that part. And the only very big gripe I have with this card is that it freaking points left for some reason. What I would have really loved if it pointed down. You know, for extra links and all that. Hell, Revolver was the first duelist out of 3 in the entire show to ever perform an extra link. So yeah, the only other ones were Lightning and Spectre. In the same duel, mind you. God, I love that duel. And yeah, this is usually a 2 or 3 off staple. Next up we have their first link to Delingerous Dragon. Points up and down, 1600 attack, requires 2 Dark Dragon monsters, and once per turn during your opponent's end phase you can target 1 attack position monster your opponent controls that did not declare an attack this turn, destroy it, and if you do, inflict damage to your opponent equal to that monster's original attack, and if a Rokket monster is special summoned to your field while this card is in your graveyard except during the damage step, you can special summon this card but banish it when it leaves the field. You can only use each effect of Delingerous Dragon once per turn. This is for all what it does a very nice Link 2 monster. First of all, it can basically destroy opponent's monsters, like if your opponent goes first, then you go second, then you go into this. Of course, the opponent's monsters did not declare an attack last turn. It's the first duel of the first turn of the duel, and yeah, you basically get to pop a monster and get some nice burn damage out of it. Although good luck if the monster cannot be targeted. And this thing can very easily, combined with their field spell, be a very nice Link 4 monster because of its decent and very great reviving effect, which is a hard once per turn, but thankfully it's not a once per duel effect, thank God no. So yeah, very great card, and is usually run at 2 or 3. Next up we have their other Link 2, that being Booster Dragon. Requires 2 Rokket monsters, specifically points bottom left and bottom right, and once per turn you can target one other face-up monster on the field. It gains a 500 attack and defense. Your opponent cannot activate cards or effects in response to this effect's activation. If this Link summoned card is destroyed by battle or card effect and sent to the graveyard, you can target 1 dragon monster in your graveyard, special summon it, and you can only use this effect of Booster Dragon once per turn. This is another prime example of a very great Link 2s. Those 500 attack and defense are really gonna tie the duel. Jokes aside, I'm not gonna joke around it anymore. You use this effect in order to target your target your main deck monsters in order to get their popping effects off. So yeah, there's that. And the fact that your opponent cannot activate cards or effects in response to this card's activation, you can also, for example, trigger target this card to turn it into a Link 2 2400 attack beatstick during the battle phase. Also completely shut down the opponent's card effects until this card's attack is successful. Their higher Link monsters also have this effect, so it's a very nice touch indeed. So yeah, has done the decent recycling when it hits the graveyard. But it needs to be destroyed by battle or card effect in order to do that. I would have loved it if it was activated upon this thing hitting the graveyard in any conceivable way. So yeah, good card. Next up we have Mini Boral Dragon. This is another Link to 800 attack, points left and right, 2 Rokket monsters it requires. And if you control a Borel Link monster while this card is in your graveyard, you can tribute 1 Link 3 or lower monster, special summon this card, but it cannot be used as material for the Link summon of a monster with the same Link rating as the tributed monster. You can only use this effect of Mini Boral Dragon once per turn. It's a recovery effect, but it's a bit too specific at times. But you usually don't run any more than 2 of these, so it's pretty fine. Also, tributing a Link 3 or lower monster can be, well, Link 3 specifically can be a bit costly. So yeah, you're most likely gonna be tributing a Link 1 monster in order to activate this effect, or if you have a spare Delingerous Dragon, you can basically tribute that so you can get a free monster again, the free Delingerous Dragon revival. So yeah, run 2 of these or less by preference. Next up we have another link too, that being Reloader Dragon. Requires in the effect it says Wallet monsters because this is a proxy. Anyway, yeah, it requires 2 Rokket monsters, points left and right. And you can target one other Link monster you control, special summon 1 Rokket monster from your hand to your zone that Link monster points to, but it cannot be used as Link material, also destroyed during the end phase. You can only use this effect of Reloader Dragon once per turn. When this card is destroyed by battle and sent to the graveyard, you can target one Rokket monster in your graveyard, add it to your hand. Okay, now from Booster Dragon, which had a very nice floating effect, here we have a very questionable one. This thing's floating effect activates if it's destroyed only by battle, and considering the time and release date, it's a very outdated form of floating. So yeah, it also special summons some more monsters from the hand unless you couldn't spit out all of them in your first turn, and we'll get to the field spell. It also helps out with that. So yeah, in terms of what this thing actually does and how well it usually utilizes all of its effects in the archetype, it's okay. It's basically a different flavor of a mini Boral Dragon. Yeah, you basically if you run both of them in the same deck, it's probably 1 copy of each. So yeah. Next up we have their final link too, that being Quad Boral Dragon. This one requires 2 dragon type monsters including a Rokket monster, points left and down, 1000 attack, and you can discard 1 card, then target 1 face-up monster on the field. You cannot special summon Link 2 or lower monsters from the extra deck for the rest of this turn, also destroy the targeted monster. Then if it was a Link monster, you can special summon any number of Rokket monsters with different names from your hand or graveyard up to its Link rating, and you can only use this effect of Quad Boral Dragon once per turn. Usually, when you first glance at it, you basically think that it's a very formidable extra link spam machine, but you then take a second glance and then you see it locks you into basically link 3 or higher monsters. So yeah, it can be a bit of a flimsy strategy to rely on that, but yeah, if you were struggling to summon your link 4 monsters which would tie the duel around, and basically to complete a very complicated extra link, this can be the final push the archetype might need in order to fulfill that effect. But overall, yeah, you usually run 1 or 2 of these in your extra deck toolbox. And next up we have their first link 3, that being Triple Burst Dragon. This one requires 2+ monsters except tokens, so it's a bit more generic than all the other ones. 2400 attack, and once per turn during the damage step, when a spell, trap, or monster effect is activated, a quick effect, you can negate the activation, and if this card attacks a defense position monster, inflict piercing damage. During your main phase, except the turn this card was special summoned, you contribute this card, then target one Link 2 or lower monster in your graveyard, special summon it. Then you can special summon 1 level 4 or lower dragon monster from your hand. I am not sure how they did it. Yeah. The link arrows points up, down, and left are not very okay. I mean, you can use it for a right corner link material for extra linking, but this monster is very generic in its design, and yeah, it's the only relevant usage about this card's effect is the Omni Negation, which is also a quick effect. Yeah, it's an Omni Negation, it's bound to be a quick effect, and it also inflicts piercing damage for some reason. So yeah, it's basically only used and ran because it's a very generic dragon beat stick. Also, the summoning condition is very, very generic, so yeah, you usually run this because it's a very generic beat stick and nothing else. Probably ran it 1 in pure Rokket builds because it basically does not synergize too well with the archetype, and and the name it makes it a bit troublesome to work with in the archetype. So yeah. Next up we have another disappointment, that being Vorticular Drum Gun. This is another Link 3. It requires 3 Dark Dragon monsters, 1000 attack, well, Link 3, which is very amusing. Points left, right, and down. And if this card is special summoned, you can draw 1 card. You can only use this effect of Orticle or Drum Gun once per turn, and if this effect resolves, the unused monster zone this card points to cannot be used for the rest of this turn. Okay, I'm really confused here. What the hell is this supposed to be? A very, very restrictive upstart goblin? First of all, it's a Link 3 with... okay, we can be arguing very long for how useful its link arrows are due to the fact that Nightmare Unicorn also has the same link arrows. Second of all, a Link 3 with 1000 attack, which is very, very bad. 3 Dark Dragon type monsters it requires, not 2 plus, specifically 3 Dragon type monsters it requires, so it's a bit strict in its summoning condition. And all you get are like 1 card and most of the time 2 monster zones which you cannot even use. Who the hell thought this was a good idea? Show me his face. Yeah, don't run this. I'm not gonna waste my time here. Next up is a real treat. Flash Charge Dragon is another Link 3. Well, this one with 2300 attack requires 2 plus Dragon type monsters. Points top left, top right, and up. You cannot summon or set monsters to a zone this card points to. Once per turn, if a monster is normal or special summoned to a zone this card points to, except during the damage step, you can destroy 1 monster this card points to, and if you do, inflict 500 damage to your opponent. When an Anacarda effect is activated that targets this face-up card, quick effect, you contribute 1 monster to negate the activation. Okay, it burns like Trickstars. It has a once per turn targeting protection. It can block off the opponent's... It can block off the extra monster zones. I don't know, like... What... I'm not even sure. Look, I mentioned this card earlier in the topologic archetype analysis, that it's actually the second card with which it is possible to make a Y-shaped extra link, and you're wondering like how. It clearly says you cannot normal summon or set monsters to a zone this card points to. Well, if you happen to negate its effects with something like, I don't know, Forbidden Chalice or Skill Drain, you can basically benefit from that by making a Y-shaped extra link this turn. But why? This is one of the worst monsters I've ever seen from the anime, and yeah, this why did they adapt this? Like this could have been an anime exclusive that would be forgotten after like 3 minutes, because this was only used once in the show, a grand total of once, and yeah, it's not very worth it. So yeah, but thankfully we are done with the horrible section of the extra deck with this beautiful batch of uselessness, sorry, because now we're going on to the beautiful batch of usefulness. That's what I was going to say. Alright, get ready. Time to take a look at some of the best extra deck lineup you've ever seen. First up, we have their first Link 4, the main ace monster of the main rival of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Reigns. Give it up for Borreload Dragon. Here he is. This one is a Link 4, points left, right, bottom left, and bottom right, 3000 attack, requires 3 plus effect monsters as materials, and neither player can target this card with monster effects. And once per turn, quick effect, you can target 1 face-up monster on the field that loses 500 attack and defense. Your opponent cannot activate cards or effects in response to this card's activation. At the start of the damage step, if this card attacks an opponent's monster, you can place that opponent's monster in a zone this card points to and take control of it, but send it to the graveyard during the end phase of the next turn. Wow, this is such a nicely made ace monster for a rival. First off, yeah, the summoning condition can be a bit tricky at times, since you need to get at least 3 monsters out on the field in order to fulfill it. But yeah, Scapegoat makes it way easy to summon, so yeah, one of the reasons why Scapegoat is currently limited. So yeah, first of all, it cannot be targeted by monster effects, like period. Nothing can target it. So yeah, that's a great card. For second of all, it has the booster dragon's effect. Only it basically reduces permanently attack by 500. Which means you can use it during the battle phase in order to completely shut down your opponent's monster effects until this card has made a successful attack. Second of all, you can use it on your own monsters in order to trigger their pop effects. And to top it all off, this thing when it battles basically steals an opponent's monster, which can be a high beat stick, which can then proceed to polarize on the opponent some more. You can use it as a combo material in order to go into link plays, or if you fail to do so because the monster is a very unique and I don't want to say unique, but very problematic monster to work with, it just goes to the graveyard. It isn't destroyed or just sent to the graveyard during the end phase of the next turn after this thing was basically used, so you don't have to worry about the monster returning to the opponent. This was a very popular choice, and it's still very frequently ran in most extra deck because it's just so good. The monster is just very good and very iconic in its own way. And the reason why this monster doesn't see that much play like it did before is because of its first evolution that came out, that being Boreal Sword Dragon. Another Link 4 which points up, left, bottom left and down, and has the same stats as summoning conditions as the original, and this one cannot be destroyed by battle. Once per turn, quick effect, you can target one attack position monster, change it to defense position. Also, this card can make a second attack during each battle phase this turn, and your opponent also cannot activate cards or effects in response to this effect's activation. Once per turn, when this card declares an attack on a face-up monster, you can activate this effect. Until the end of this turn, this card's attack gains attack equal to half that monster's current attack, and if it does, that monster's current attack is halved. Very, very great effect, and possibly even better than the original Borreload for 2 reasons. First off, again, when the effect goes off, nothing can be done in order to stop it, meaning the opponent's card effects are completely shut down until this card has made a successful attack. Second of all, you can use it on your own Rokket monsters in order to trigger their pop effects. Second of all, this thing can become a very massive beat stick, so even somewhat of a better Honest can even become. Switching monster positions is something that I would make fun of because we're in the Link era and stuff rarely goes into defense position. But trust me, you're most likely going to be using this effect on your own monsters in order to trigger their pop effects, or some other monster, since this thing is very splashable and is one of the heavily played meta cards of all time. You're basically going to be triggering this effect on one of your own monsters in order to switch them to defense mode, or basically in order to get some additional benefits from doing that. And on top of all that, this thing can attack twice while being a big beat stick. So yeah, this is a very nicely designed card, and yeah, it's a very very cool designed card in my opinion. As we'll see on with their next monster, which is the final Link evolution of Borreload Dragon, that being Boreal Guard Dragon. That is their final Link monster. This one points up, down, right, and bottom right. Same summoning condition stats as the original Borreload Dragon and Boreal Sword Dragon. And this one cannot be destroyed by card effects. So yeah, this is the third unique way of immunity. And once per turn, you can target you can send one card from your spell and trap zone to the graveyard, special summon from your graveyard to your field one monster that was destroyed, and send there this turn but negate its effects. Once per turn, quick effect, you can target one monster on the field, change it to face-up defense position, and your opponent cannot activate cards or effects in response to this card's activation. This is widely considered to be the worst form of Borreload Dragon in Link form, but it has a few uses here and there. It can recycle your Rokket monsters, which were sent to the graveyard this turn. You can also recycle and resummon some of your opponent's monsters, which you've basically destroyed during this turn, since this thing's no, it's not a quick effect, but yeah, but it might as well be, since during main phase 2 you'll actually have very good incentives to do this due to one of their support cards. So yeah, this one is not very not as bombastic as the previous two ones were, but it's still a very good card, and consider running at least one of them, because its effect can be a bit can be handy. So yeah. Alright, now going on to their final three extra deck monsters. First up we have Borreload Furious Dragon. This is a level 8 fusion monster. 3000 attack and 2500 defense. Requires specifically two dark dragons, so it's a bit more so it's a bit generic here. It has a quick effect that you can target one monster you control and one card your opponent controls, destroy them. You can banish this card from your graveyard, then target one Dragon Link monster in your graveyard, special summon it, but it cannot activate its effects this turn, and you can only use each effect once per turn. This is somewhat of a high-level boss monster version of Man-Eater Bug, or basically, yeah. What are some nice monsters which basically pop any card on the field for, like, yeah. This is a higher-level version of Raikou with a quick effect. So yeah, Raikou the Lightsworn Hunter. Remember that age-old meta and everything. So yeah, yeah. This is a cool card to consider having. You can also it also has some nice recursion in terms of you can special summon some other Boral monsters, such as Borreload Dragon, Boral Sword Dragon, some of their other monsters which we'll get into later. So yeah, they have an archetypal fusion spell which can summon this thing. So yeah, good card. However, it really gets heated up when we get to their synchro monster, that being Borreload Savage Dragon. This one is a level 8, completely generic, same stats as the Borreload Furious Dragon. And if this card is synchro summoned, you can equip one Link monster from your graveyard to this card, and if you do, place Borel counters on this card equal to the Link monster's Link rating. This card gains attack equal to half the attack of the monster equipped to this card by this effect. When your opponent activates a card or quick effect, you can remove one Borel counter from this card to negate the activation. You can only use this effect of Borreload Savage Dragon once per turn. Along with Boral Sword Dragon, this is also one of the most heavily played meta cards of all time due to, well, how great it is. You can basically recover your Link monster that is in the graveyard in order to get some nice advantage in form of massive attack values and these Borel counters, which I would make fun of because this is an archetype not based on counters, so that in terms of synergy it does not very correlate very well, but they do have a purpose. They have a very nice Omni Negation effect, which is really nice. It does not destroy the card, which might be a plus due to the fact that it can cancel out some floating effects, but it can be a minus due to the fact that you basically it has no harm to it does no harm to to the continuous spell cards or trap cards. So yeah, you most likely are not going to be using those counters on them, so you'll have some other Omni Negations ready for those. So yeah, this is a spectacular monster and definitely worth running in your deck. So yeah, and their final monster is Borreload X-Charge Dragon, their rank 4 Xyz. Requires 2 level 4 dark monsters, same stats as the first two dragons that are not links, and neither player can target this Xyz summoned card with monster effects except its own. Once per turn, you can detach one material from this card, then target one face-up monster on the field. It loses 600 attack and defense. Then you can special summon one Borel monster from your graveyard, but banish it during the end phase. Also, you cannot special summon other monsters that turn or attack directly for the rest of this turn. Um, this is a okay choice, but it can be a rather a rather huge hindrance on your part due to some slight problems which make it a worse choice over Furious Dragon or Savage Dragon. First of all, when this thing activates its effect in order to reduce the attack of 600 and defense as well, it doesn't have that charming clause that the opponent cannot activate anything in response to this card's activation, so yeah. This monster is free for the pickings somewhat when it attacks. Well, you're most likely gonna be again using it on your Rokket monsters in order to get their popping effects. So yeah, run one or two if you feel like it in your Rokket deck. Alright, now on to their spell and trap support. First up we have the quick play spell Rapid Trigger. Fusion summon one fusion as a monster from your extra deck by destroying fusion materials listed on it from your field. But it can only attack monsters special summoned from the extra deck. Also, it is unaffected by activated effects from any monster special summoned from the extra deck, and you can only activate one Rapid Trigger per turn. This is so far the most unique fusion spell I have ever seen, due to the fact that it straight up destroys the monsters you're using as material, which is neat in terms of how unique, how some cards can be unique in their own way. But you're going to be using your Rokket monsters in order to summon the Furious Dragon, but the bad thing is that it does not trigger their own effects, so boo in that regard. However, this also, due to the fact that this thing is a quick play, it can provide some fancy disruption by dropping Furious Dragon onto the field with some with intention of stopping an opponent's barrage of attacks, or stopping a powerful effect from going off. Also, it actually gives Furious Dragon some more immunity, so yeah, great card. Alright, now going on to their field spell, which we mentioned earlier when talking about Booster Dragon, that being Boot Sector Launch. All Rokket monsters on the field gain 300 attack and defense. You can already see how pointless this is, right? You can activate one of these effects. Special summon up to 2 Rokket monsters with different names from your hand in defense position. If your opponent controls more monsters than you do, special summon Rokket monsters with the different names from your graveyard in defense position up to the difference. You can only use this effect of Boot Sector Launch once per turn. I would have actually loved it if you could actually use both of these effects during the same turn, since these effects go very well together. You open up with the first one, or maybe actually, if you actually have the graveyard set up, you open up with the second one and then close up with the first one, and then go off for there. So yeah, it's a bit of a disappointing design choice there, but still, this is an okay field spell, and it's usually ran at 2 or 3 in Rokket decks. Next up we have Boral Regenerator, an equip spell, which says that activate this card by targeting one Rokket monster in your graveyard. Special summon it and equip it with this card, but banish it when it leaves the field. When this card leaves the field, sorry. If this card is sent to the graveyard because the equipped monster is destroyed, you can draw one card. You can only use each effect of Boral Regenerator once per turn. It's okay. It basically resummons a Rokket monster which you used earlier in the duel, and when you use its effect again, you get a +1. So yeah, it's alright card, but not worth maxing out on, because yeah, you actually want to summon each member of your archetype, meaning you can also you also want to summon some link monsters and extra deck monsters with it. So yeah, there's that. Next up we have the quick play Squib Draw. Target one Rokket monster you control, destroy it, and if you do, draw 2 cards, and you can only activate one Squib Draw per turn. Great card, but I loved it so much more if you could actually trigger the effects of Rokket monsters with it. But yeah, it's a quick play as well, so if you play that Rokket Exodia build, you can disrupt the opponent's game by drawing into those lands. Yeah, I'm taking these jokes a bit too far, but yeah, this is a 3-off staple regardless, so yeah. Next up we have Boral Supplier, a continuous spell. During each standby phase, if you control a Boral Link monster, you can target one Rokket monster in your graveyard, special summon it, but destroy it during the end phase. You can only use this effect of Boral Supplier once per turn. Yeah, this is somewhat of a graveyard Valhalla for the archetypes. So yeah, you basically revive this thing and revive a monster from your graveyard, use its popping effect, and get a new one during the end phase. So yeah, it can due to it being a continuous spell, there's no need to run 3 of them, so 1 or 2 should be perfectly fine. Quick Launch is their other another quick play spell, which allows you to special summon one monster from your Rokket monster from your deck, but it cannot attack and also destroy it during the end phase. Easy swarming, and yeah, that's always appreciated. And you run this at 3 due to it being a quick play spell. Can also provide some spicy disruption as well, and yeah, you're most likely going to be make decent use out of the monster you summon with this, so yeah, great card. Next up we have their final spell card, that being another quick play, that Bayonet Punisher. Apply these effects in sequence depending on the number depending on the monster card types of Boral monsters you control and or in your graveyard. If you control a monster with 3000 or more attack, your opponent cannot activate cards or effects in response to this card's activation. Fusion, banish one monster your opponent controls. Synchro, banish 3 random face down cards from your opponent's extra deck. Xyz, banish one spell or trap your opponent controls. Link, banish up to 3 cards from your opponent's graveyard. If you can actually pull off all 3 of these effects, this basically becomes a very valued card in the deck. Yeah, you can obviously activate one of them per turn. But yeah, most likely we're going to be activating only like 2 or 3 effects, but yeah, it's worth it, very much worth it. So yeah, you usually run one of these and 2 if you really feel like it. And I also like the fact that you don't have that these effects are not categorized which ones activate based on the numbers. So yeah, for example, if you don't have one of these, you don't activate the last effect or something like that. You basically activate the effects based on the number, based on the types of monsters you have. So yeah, very good, nice design choice, and yeah, glad we have it. And next up we go on to the trap cards. First up we have Boral Cooling. Tribute one Rokket monster, then target one Boral Link monster you control, equip it with this card. If this card is equipped to a monster by this effect is equipped against this effect. Once per turn, quick effect, you can target one monster you control. It cannot be destroyed by battle or a card effect this turn. I'm not sure why this thing even exists, since all of the monsters in the archetype do the same thing, but miles better than this. Basically, this gives the Fusion Synchro and Xyz Borreloads a Borreload Dragon targeting effect, and yeah, you're most likely gonna have the regular Link monsters on the field before running this, so yeah, not worth it in my opinion. Tactical Exchanger is their other trap card, and target one face-up monster you control, destroy it. And if you lose, special summon one Rokket monster with a different original name from your deck or graveyard, then you can only activate one Tactical Exchanger per turn. Nice in theory when it allows you to switch out between Rockets you might need and not need, but the problem, again, I cannot stress this enough, is that it doesn't trigger the effects of Rokket monsters you destroy, so yeah, you run one because it can actually prove to be a decent play interrupter at points due to the Borreload Dragon's effects being quick plays and all that, so you can replace removal effect which you might need at the moment with the one you do, so yeah. Next up we have 0 Day Blaster. Tribute one Dark Link monster, then target cards on the field equal to its Link rating, destroy them. very gimmicky in activation, and you don't usually tend to tribute a Link 4 monster in order to just get 4 pops off the field. But yeah, you can set up the graveyard if you're ready for in order to summon Borreload Savage Dragon. So there's that. So yeah, if you run this, it's not probably more than one. Next up, we have their semi-final card, that being Link Turret, a continuous trap. And when this card is activated, place 4 counters on this card. Each time you take battle damage, place 1 counter on this card. During your main phase 2, you can remove 1 counter from this card, then target 1 Rokket monster in your graveyard, special summon it, but its effects are negated. Also, it is banished when it leaves the field. You cannot special summon monsters from the extra deck except Dark Link monsters the turn you activate this effect, even if this card leaves the field. So yeah, this is actually a somewhat of a very formidable extra link spam machines, although it requires quite some setup. Also, you lose your monsters permanently, which you revive due to them being banished when they leave the field after being resummoned with this. However, you can also circumvent this by using Imperial Iron Wall. So yeah, it's limited to main phase 2 for a reason, because if you had access to this kind of setup and recovery during main phase 1, then this card would have probably seen the ban list pretty fast. So yeah. And their final card is another continuous trap, that being Execute Protocols. During each battle phase, you can banish 1 Dark Link monster from your graveyard and target 1 Borel monster you control. Until the end of this turn, it gains attack equal to the attack of the monster banished to activate this effect. You can only use this effect of Execute Protocols once per turn. This attack boost is very irrelevant, since you're most likely gonna be banishing stuff like Booster Dragon or like Delingerous Dragon, which don't have very impressive attack values, since you really don't want to be banishing your Borel monsters from your graveyard, which, well, if you have like a Borreload Savage Dragon and you have like a Borreload or Borel Sword Dragon in your graveyard, you can banish them in order to get some nice attack values. But overall, it's very impractical. However, it's a continuous trap, so you won't be breaking if you choose to run one of these if you want for the flavor. So yeah, and now we've come to the grades. In terms of consistency, Rockets have a very unique aspect of consistency in built into their gameplay style, and that most of their consistency relies on waiting until the end phase in order to get some new monsters, which isn't very reliable. But hey, Squib Draw is a thing. You can also run some generic cards which boost consistency, and dragons have some nice options in that regard. Return of the Dragon Lords is a nice option if you choose to run many of the higher level ones, like a lot of Absoluter dragons or Exploder Rokket dragons. So yeah, but that again, it's not very reliable. So yeah, 2 out of 3 in terms of consistency. Power gets a 3 out of 3 because of their extra lineup is just so extremely ridiculous, especially the Borel lineup of monsters. So yeah, a very formidable extra deck monsters indeed, and very deserving of that grade. Comeback ability is very present in terms of Borreload Savage Dragon can basically win you the game if you manage to summon it. That also applies to Furious Dragon. Link Turret can also provide some nice comeback in my opinion, and yeah, they definitely really stand out in this regard. However, it's still not perfect, so I'm gonna give them a 2 out of 3. In terms of protection, they really don't have that much of it. NS Rokket Dragon is a very strong disabling effect, but it's a bit too far off in between, and the other monsters don't really have a say in this matter, and they don't have any concrete forms of protection other than Borel monsters, which are Link monsters, and they have other monsters of the other summoning mechanics, which makes them a bit too hard to summon. So yeah, and not to mention that those protection effects are most likely always applied onto themselves specifically. So yeah, 1 out of 3 is perfectly understandable here. And as for the versatility, they get a fat 3 out of 3 because of the splashability of Borreload Dragon, Borel Sword Dragon, and Borreload Savage Dragon. These 3 monsters are basically played in 99% of all decks due to how good they are. So, yeah, a great extra deck lineup indeed. And those were Rokket monsters, 40 cards. Yeah, that's the minimum you need to play this game. So yeah, it's a very unique or very unique dragon spam archetype, and I'm glad I reviewed them. It's okay. It's a very great archetype in my opinion, and one of my favorites in terms of aesthetics and how its gameplay style was executed here. So yeah, we're nearing the end of the Reigns marathon as we only have 2 archetypes to go. Next time we'll be taking a look at the All Swarm archetype. Oh boy, it's gonna get interesting. And thank you so much for watching. Stay tuned for more videos and updates. Comment, like, and subscribe. And as usual, I'll upload the next vid whenever I can. See you all. Have a good day and peace.